But I just want to know. I just got to go down this list.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, P.J. Walker, LaMelo Ball. Why doesn't anybody in Charlotte have a healthy ankle, Charles? We need some healthy ankles in Charlotte. What's going on down there?
I know, man. It's been tough. And I was actually at the game the other night when LaMelo twisted his ankle again. And, I mean, you could literally just hear the air come out of the arena. And, I mean, the kid has worked so hard and, you know, and is a truly great kid and is one of the hardest working players that I've seen. But it's just unfortunate right now. I mean, they were in the game last night. If you saw the game against Cleveland, you know, went to double overtime. You know, the guys are playing hard. Terry, PJ, the whole crew. But not only LaMelo, but, you know, Cody Martin has been out.
Yep.
Gordon Hayward just came back. Dennis Smith Jr., you know, from downstate's now hurt. I mean, it's just been tough. So, honestly, it's really hard to even know where the team is right now because they've been so hurt. But the good thing about it, I think Coach Clifford, you know, obviously what happened with Kenny Atkinson, I think Coach Clifford was the right coach because they needed a veteran coach like him. And I think he was the right guy. It was unfortunate what happened with Kenny Atkinson, but I think Coach Clifford ended up being the right hire for this team at this time. And I think, you know, once everybody gets healthy, you know, we'll see what they can do. And I mean, the thing about it is the East is so, you know, unpredictable and so wide open. You know, once they can, I mean, but look at Cleveland last night with Donovan and Garland, but we were right there. And so with, you know, with our best player, unquestionably our best player hurt, and then, you know, obviously the unfortunate situation with Miles Bridges has yet to be resolved as well. So, I mean, once again, if they had a full team, they could be right there. So, I mean, one, you got to credit, you know, the players for, you know, really sticking together and not giving up. And I think, you know, a player that's really impressed me a lot who's having a good start to the season is P.J. Washington. And I think in the absence of Miles, I think P.J. has really stepped up. You can tell he worked on the game over the summer. He came in good shape. And, I mean, I think he's one guy that not, you know, a lot of them are. Terry, you know, Mason Plumlee down there from Duke's giving us what we need from him. You know, Mark Williams, you know, hurt again with the ankle, you know.
And P.J. Washington doesn't have the baby mama drama this year either.
There's that.
I know. And so with that, you can tell he's playing a lot better because he doesn't have that drama. So at the end of the day, he's more relaxed on the court, and honestly, it shows.
Charles Whitfield joining us here on the Heaster Automotive Group hotline here on Culture State Saturday. So I want to ask you about some of these young guys. I know, you know, P.J. Washington with Bridges being not there. I'll just put it in that terms. I know he's going to have to shoot threes a little bit more and be a little bit more consistently from behind the arc. But some of these young guys, you mentioned Mark Williams. There's guys like Kai Jones, JT Thor, James Bouknight. Some of these young guys have been drafted pretty high over the last couple of years. Where do you feel their path is or their trajectory in terms of their development to being regular rotation players for this Hornets roster? It's still a really young roster. And like you mentioned, LaMelo Ball, unquestionably the best guy on the team. He's still only, 21 years old?
21 years old.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of development for these guys, but you still have to keep these guys on this roster intact, but these guys do have to develop. Where do you see their development going?
You know what? I think it's really, honestly, in my opinion, pretty hard to tell right now because, one, when those guys have gotten minutes, whether it's JT Thor or whether it's Bouknight, I know Bouknight started off a little bit, you know, inconsistent at the start of the year. Picked it up a little bit, but I think, you know, right now with the roster so in flux with injuries, I think it's been tough. And I think also, Chris, to, you know, where you came from, I was actually just texting back and forth this morning with Steve Switoa, who's the president of the Greensboro Swarm. I think the Swarm and the developmental league has been great for those guys. I mean, I think I've seen a couple of the guys go back and down, you know, this year already just to get those minutes, and whether it's a practice or in a game. But I think, you know, I think Mitch and Buzz Peterson and those guys have done great with utilizing Greensboro. And I think the guys have actually had a positive attitude and not looking at it as like a demotion, but looking at it as a, you know, an hour and a half drive up the road where they can go get some playing time and get back. And so when someone does get hurt, which, you know, that happens in the league. And it's also like you hear what you guys just reeled off with the Panthers with P.J. Walker. It's really got to be next man up. And so at the end of the day, I think, you know, those guys have been good, you know, trying to make the best out of an opportunity. You know, I look at it, JT Thor, you know, Kai Jones hasn't really got a lot of time. But, you know, one, from the mindset of when those guys have gotten in the game, they produce to a degree. You know, not to the degree of like the starters are doing, but they've not hurt them. You know, and at the end, I think it's just the roster is just so in flux because of the injuries that I think once they can, get everybody back, whenever that'll be, and not even counting Miles, but just back with the team that they got now, I think they could really make some hay in the East.